As the state responds and prepares for Hurricane Helene, the recovery process from Hurricane Helene is far from over. Federal officials signed off on millions of dollars in long-delayed aid, but Governor Stein says millions more are in limbo.
WRAL got a hold of the letters he sent to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. They're behind us here. They show North Carolina has been waiting on Helene relief money and money to help communities prepare for storms. Today, I spoke to the State Emergency Management Director and asked him about the consequences of these delays. If the state government does not give you what you need, or the federal government does not pony up quickly, is it fair to say that you fear that more people are going to die?
I am concerned about our ability to respond well to the needs of our communities and what that could mean. And funding is an enormous part of that equation.
How hard is this lack of funding impacting your office's ability to do its job?
I think great question. I think it impacts not just us at a state level, but I think also more acutely, and I think somewhat more impactfully, is the impact on our local communities. We are heavily, as an agency, heavily reliant on grant funding from the Department of Homeland Security to fund our core operations. So core preparedness and response efforts, is a large amount of that is supported off of a number of federal preparedness grants. At this point in time of the year, we have normally received those notices of funding, normally have applications in and are starting work on those things. We did recently, DHS did release those notices of funding finally a couple of weeks ago, and we had about a 2-week turnaround, 10, 11-day turnaround to get those applications back into FEMA and DHS, and I think are waiting kind of on their review and approval or decisions on those applications at this point.
So no decisions have been made. You still have not seen the money that you're expecting. And we're talking about $200 million. About that?
So I think in reference to the governor's letter, there is a significant amount of funding, approximately 200. I think the mark moves a little bit depending on the day, that has not yet been able to be drawn down and reimbursed to our local communities, and that is largely for Helene.
Are you speaking specifically to Republican federal lawmakers to try to get them to move that ball forward?
So I will say we have had great support from the congressional delegation, bipartisan here in North Carolina. Both parties, I think, acknowledge the need for these funds to continue to flow and flow quickly if we are going to have a successful recovery in Western North Carolina.
So you say they need to flow quickly, but that's not happening yet. And we're now well into halfway past the start of the year. So if you're not seeing that money, how do you prioritize preparedness and recovery response, given that you are facing this real restriction on funding?
Recovery activity is continuing. It's an issue of we've got to deal with the cash flow challenges for our local communities, particularly, and some of the replenishment there so that they can continue a successful recovery, but also continue to provide really critical essential services every day. On the preparedness side, as we look at how we support our local communities, areas that we need to support our local communities in, I think not having kind of clear answers on our federal preparedness funds. We're really fortunate here in North Carolina to have appropriated by the General Assembly an emergency response and disaster relief fund that we're able to access when we see something like Helene coming. The thought is that if it's an event that's going to be federal, in any kind of federal declaration in nature, that fund would be replenished with federal funds. So again, we know there's going to be some, I think, downstream impacts on funding levels if we continue to see events happening that may or may not rise now to the level of a federal declaration.
We asked FEMA about the funding delays as well. Here are the questions that we are waiting on an answer for. Why has FEMA approval for Helene aid slowed? Does FEMA plan to approve pending Helene requests in time for the storm's 1-year mark? Will FEMA get disaster preparedness grants to states in time? We will let you know when we hear back.